Okay. Welcome, Bryan, to the Talented Tip Podcast. Can't believe it's been this long getting you on one-on-one. You are the first episode of kind of this rebrand of the Talented 10th Podcast and video and things like that. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Before we jump into growing up together, basketball, that I got something for you. So this is the Casa Dragonis Joven. It's one of my favorite Jovens. Casa Dragonis can be a little pricey, but it's pretty good. So let's just have a pour.
Sound good to me.
Set this right here. Set that right there.
Put it right here.
Yep. Okay. There you go.
Appreciate you.
Always. Okay. First question. What is your first memory of us? And then, what is your first memory of, being introduced to basketball?
Ooh. First memory of us, I guess it kind of would come to mind would be like a Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, obviously I'm a couple years older than you, but, just being at a Christmas and, opening different gifts and,
Maybe jumping on a tree?
yeah, I think I probably was about 4 or 5 when I jumped on that tree and rode it to the ground. But probably just, probably a Christmas, just opening presents, just being there, mom and dad being there, and, dad assembling different things, spending all day putting a lot of different things together just so we could play with them, play with the new toys and different things that, that they were able to provide for us. So
Getting frustrated?
yeah, getting frustrated and but, he always figured out a way to get it done and, to allow us to have a really good Christmas. So, that would probably be the first memory I could think of.
Yeah, same here. I remember, I think we've talked about it before. There was an All-Star game. I think it was in Detroit because they had Chris Webber interviewing Bill Russell. Mm-hmm. I think he asked him what's kind of one of your earliest memories. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget Mr. Russell said, my first memory was that my mom and dad loved me. Mm-hmm. And you're like, never heard anybody put it in that way.
Yep.
But that was my memory, and then Christmas was one of those times that crystallized that. I remember Daddy having to put together so it's like a Spider-Man game, a daily bugle. It was the full facade of the newspaper, and had a backside, front side, had a million different pieces and stuff. And
yeah, it took a while to put together.
It took a long time to put together, but. All right, what about basketball? Because that starts early, right? I mean,
yeah, that starts early. I mean, obviously, Mama went into labor with me
yeah.
During the game at Dumas.
Yep.
That was obviously I was born in '88, January, so she went into labor at that time, and I think it's funny. Me and Dad were talking about it the other day about Coach French.
Yep.
Driving him over to the hospital you know, immediately at the conclusion of that game and it being ice and stuff on the roads, you know, driving in that bad weather. So, I mean, obviously that's the first story that I can remember. I can still remember. I guess one thing I can remember when Daddy used to always take a group of guys up to Nolan Richardson basketball camp
Yep.
in Fayetteville, and you know, standing at the door when we were too young to go, and I can remember him talking about, you know, me crying at that door, you know, kind of when he would leave and take that group of guys, group of kids up there to camp. So that's probably you know, the first memory that I can
Yeah.
really think of as it pertains to basketball.
Yeah, because I think a few years later I did the same thing when I couldn't go. And that had to be, I think, so your first camp was around,
5.
you were 5. So that would have been in 93, 94. So as you can imagine, all those that know how much of a Hog fan, even at a young age, so I was 3. But I remember 3 years old. I remember Miss Pauline at Kids World and all that. I just probably was a little bit more of an aware kid than most. And so, man, Bryan got to go to Nolan Richardson basketball camp in the summer of 93, leading into the 93-94 season. And I had to stay at the house. And so I wasn't really into basketball yet, but I knew they were going to play basketball. I knew they were going, you know, Arkansas had a national brand at that time. And it just, to know that that was happening and I was at home with mama wasn't necessarily a good feeling. But tell me about Coach Richardson basketball camp, the people you met there, and then we'll get into how those relationships kind of are still with you.
You know, that was, you know, obviously really the first time where you getting away from home and, you know, just around a bunch of people, you know, from, you know, at this time, you know, Arkansas is rolling their national program, their national brand.
Yeah.
So,
About to move into Bud Walton.
yep. So there were people all over the country. You know, this is AAU hadn't really taken off. They were playing AAU back, but it wasn't to the level that it is now. So a lot of kids at this time,
You had to go to camp.
you went to, you know, you picked out different camps at these colleges that you went to. So, you know, obviously I was 5 years old, and it went all the way up to, potential seniors or whatever going in. So, I mean, at this time, I mean, you would be in there with, man, it's every bit of 400 kids, 400 kids at least.
And 75% of them stayed overnight.
Yeah, you was an overnight camp, you know.
Is that
the local,
crazy?
yeah,
How young the kid you get dropped off? Because these are what, 4 or 5 day camps.
yeah. You go on a Sunday, and I think we finished up on Thursday. If you would check in, that Sunday afternoon, and you know, get checked in. You know, they cleared all the dorms and different things they had out. You know, kind of dedicated for camp, and man, I mean, you meet a lot of different. You know, it's funny. A lot of the different players and you know, kids at that time, you know, including myself, that you met, you continue to see them, you know, as AAU and stuff continue to get popular. Those were some of the same kids that you saw from, you know, you had people from California, New York, like they were all around the country. So, you know, obviously that was the first time I met, you know, Mike Conley at that time. You know, obviously, you know, my dad and his dad, or our dad and his dad, went to school together, and you know, they've known each other. But that was the first time that we had officially kind of met, and then, you know, obviously we built a relationship with, you know, Coach Anderson, you know, with Michael Jr. and, you know, Bo Richardson, you know, that family, and those, those were relationships and stuff that, still,
Oh yeah,
are still prevalent to the day. But
30 years.
yeah, I'm 35, getting ready to go on 36, and that started at the age of 5. So, that was a big starting point, for me, in my basketball journey.
So before we get into kind of your beginnings in AAU, um, like what are your first memories of dad taking you to the gym and like structured workouts per se? Just
Uh,
because we always spent time in the gym when we were young, so we were observing basketball even before we were drilling it and practicing it. So do you kind of remember that a little
I
bit?
remember it a little bit. It was funny. I was talking to somebody the other day. I've pretty much been at a practice almost every day of my life.
For
Other
30
than some weekends.
plus years.
I'm 35, 30, going 36. From getting dropped off, after school on the bus. Um, getting checked out of school, going to pep rallies. The whole nine. So, I can just remember just, being in practices, seeing different things, kind of picking up on it. I can kind of remember just kind of really starting, we had that goal in the backyard.
Yeah.
We kind of started working and doing some things there. I can still remember some of those, those times.
Which my first memories, but before I get to those, like at this time, so we began this with 93, 94 and the basketball camp. Obviously, that was the national championship team that won. And you were watching some seniors committed that were on the 95, young, but on the 95 team as well. And probably some of those in that 96 Sweet 16, when you around 98 when you get into Pat Bradley's, Kareem Reeves and stuff. And then at Monticello, you just had a lot of competition, a lot of great athletes at that time from a high school level. You had dual sport athletes. They won a state championship in football that year.
Lost in the
Dad and Tim
semi.
lost in the semis to Cersei. I remember sitting on the bench with you on that. We
Mm-hmm.
were 3-5. So we were around competitiveness at a very young age, exposed to it, really baptized in it almost. I mean, and you were literally born on the night of competition. So I remember my earliest memories. I know we got the picture of us shooting outside back, but I remember when we got our first goal in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And
Cause
me,
the goal in the back was like
wood post.
it was a wood post. It wasn't a 2x4, but it was man, it was just one of them things you put in the ground for a fence,
Yeah.
and then just kind of a goal. It was just kind of a
Roughly
yeah, kind of a put
10,
together. It wasn't 10
10 feet.
feet. It wasn't 10. But that's what we used to
To learn how to,
to
yeah,
learn.
definitely, Dad definitely didn't have us learning basketball on a 10-foot goal. A lot of people make that mistake nowadays.
So we kind of worked up in increments. It started lower, then you did that for a while, and you moved up some more and work on some more things. But yeah, that first one I can remember that one.
But our on the front yard, me and Dad used to play you 2-on-1.
Hmm.
Do you remember those, and how did that help you, if at all?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, it definitely you can remember those times. It was 2-on-1. Playing against both of you, and just it was kind of just a similar to kind of getting ready.
Yeah.
For what I was getting ready to experience in high school.
So, talk to me about the early days of Arkansas Hawks, and then you playing AAU ball.
Well, I can remember we went up there for a tryout at Ramey Junior High.
Hmm.
Um,
And this is after you had played a year in second grade at Drew Central because you weren't allowed to play
Yeah,
in the second grade at Monticello
yeah.
Pee
They
Wee.
had the second grade at Drew Central. You'd only play third grade at Monticello. So, but yeah, we went up. I guess we would have been. I don't know. We started that same year. I don't know if we were 8, then started the next year. I can't remember. We were 8 or 9. I know the first year we started playing officially was 9.
Right.
So like I said, I can remember going to Ramey Junior High, and we were in one of those little ox gyms. Then they had another gym on the other side. So it was this was like the start of what we know as the Arkansas Hawks. We were the first team in the 9-year-old division. That's when we met. Obviously, Marcus Pillow from Russellville, and Monterio Fuller from Little Rock, and you got guys like Alex Hogue from Fort Smith, and Solomon Bozeman, who I work with now as the head coach at UAPB. Tyler Carter, Greenwood, so it was just a lot of different guys. And then obviously, you had your older groups, the next groups with Mickey Dean and, that bunch and Mark Winston and those guys, coming up in those next couple classes. So I can just remember it was a combination of all the better players in the state, from 9 years old on up. So, it was a fun time it was always, it gives you a challenge, kind of see where you at, with the other guys in the state, because you kind of used to kind of playing regionally and playing guys, only in the Southeast, but it gave you a chance to get a look at different guys, in the state.
And would you say, did it take a little time in that first few years to develop those friends, the ones that are still here today, or did y'all hit it off kind of initially?
Man, what's crazy, we really kind of hit it off from the beginning. I just think it was guys that were set on being basketball guys and knew what they wanted, even at a young age, even their families, knew, that's what they wanted for their kids. And we just kind of hit it off, man. Like I said, we were from all different parts of the state, and, just generally really good people,
Yep.
families, really good family situations, who all wanted the best for us. And man, we really hit it off, from the jump, and that's what I think seamlessly, it led into the success that we had, with that group.
Well, I mean, you had success, but you had success immediately.
Yeah, immediate success.
Immediate success. So take me to Orlando in '97, man. Like, y'all back-to-back national champions.
Yeah, so we won. We won at 10 and 11. So we won in Orlando. That's just really when the wide world of sports
Just open, right?
it really opened down there.
Side note, do you remember that Minute Maid had come
Yes,
out
I do.
with
It's crazy. That's the first thing I really thought about.
the strawberry Italian ice type thing? And man,
That was a
everybody in the
huge hit.
gym, I mean, they couldn't keep it. Anyway, I'll never forget that.
I do
Just like, God. But so 10 and 11, y'all win it. Just for people who don't understand kind of your age relevant to people today, like who do you remember? Who's playing today that you remember were a part of those, or what names?
So the first, I think obviously at 10, obviously we can start off with one of the best, or arguably the best guys in the NBA, which would be Steph Curry. He was playing with the Charlotte Stars. at that time. We beat them. I'd have never thought he would turn out to be what he is today. But he's one of those names, that comes to mind. I mean, you played guys from, Daryl Arthur with that Team Texas group that ended up at Kansas, a McDonald's All-American, and man, even over the years, with the O.J. Mayos, Bill Walkers,
Man,
Greg,
Bill Walker, golly, man.
the Greg Odens and Daquan Cooks, and man, the list would go on and on and on.
And those guys, a lot of people don't understand. Very similar to how you kind of laid out the beginning for basketball. They were all like your class was playing high level competition. You develop your skills over time, but the competition level, people were all in like super young.
Hmm.
And you get away with it now still where you can, you don't have to start at 7 and 8, but most of y'all did.
Well, we started early, and being able to go kind of play nationally, it lets you see how important or how big of a deal basketball was in certain areas. Because I can remember, so obviously you have the story New York Gauchos, who've had a huge, have had big time guys come out of there forever. And we coming up, they walking in, we getting ready to play. And it's like, oh man, we playing these little country boys from Arkansas, and
Oh, they talk so much
they
mess.
talk so much, from Edgar Sosa, who was at Louisville, and you had Curtis Kelly, they went to UConn, finished at Kansas State, and some of those guys, and man, we went out there and blitzed them.
So y'all blitzed them. So you say you got a little respect. What did that taste of respect, or what did? Because y'all could dominate guys, and not just the people y'all were clearly better than. Y'all could sometimes go out there and really, because y'all played so well together, uh, could beat really good teams as well. Like, what does that feel like when you're 10 and 11? Like,
Man,
most people don't get that experience of competition and then like dominating and like how did that feel, or did you process it?
man, I don't think you process it. I think a little later on you can process it, but I think the immediate feeling is being, from Arkansas. You always hear about the cities, the New York, the Chicago, the LA's, the whatever. They got the best basketball. They had the best players. That's what you've been force fed, for so long. And so with you having an opportunity at 10 years old to go out there and beat, obviously they call New York the Mecca, to go out there and beat, some of their best players. Those guys, they had multiple McDonald's All-Americans on that team. Ended up being McDonald's All-Americans, and it's like, man, shoot, we can go out there and beat them, man. We confident in ourselves, like we can hang and compete and do this against anybody in the country. So it gives you a taste of where you stand at that point, and man, you just obviously got to continue to get better. But you're like, man, hey, man, I'm just as good as any of these guys.
But being measured up against, coming back from that level of competition to home, how did you deal with that? Right? Was it tough? Was it easy? You going from that level of competition consistently. You're getting exposed to different things. I remember the first time we flew, all those different things. Did it make it harder coming back home and then competing in our local stuff?
No, I don't think it made it harder. I think think I may had a propensity to maybe get bored. So
Yeah.
that's no knock on anybody else, but it's just so it was two things. Just coming back was a different. It felt different, because you've been playing at that level, and then now when you playing, and then now once I have to make that jump of going back to playing at a high level, high level competition, there was a little grace period to get back in that.
So
that routine.
talk to me about habits? Big in our house. Let's dive into that. I think you're kind of alluding to, when you playing at a level and you got to step up. There are some levels. There are some habits at this level that aren't going to lead to success at the higher level. Talk to us about Daddy and process and routine and details and intensity, and how honestly I didn't understand a lot of that stuff early when he was instilling it, but it was really kind of aimed at if you want to be on a higher plane, lower level bad habits certainly aren't going to help you get on that higher plane. Talk to me how you processed it, because we processed it differently.
I process it as just just a matter of work, that goes into, it was able, the work was able to build confidence in what you were doing. So the habits of, practicing certain times, going to bed at a certain time, getting up, it just gets you in a routine. And the thing about it, even after playing, those things apply not just in sports. They're gonna apply in work. Whether you working, in the office, fast food, like it's gonna be a certain time you gotta wake up, certain time you gotta be there, ready to work. Being able to follow, instructions, commands, or whatever, and also maybe not necessarily paying attention to the way it's told to you, paying attention to the message, paying attention to what you got to get done. Because it's not always going to come out like you wanted to, or.
He's really reminding me of what he used to have to kind of tell me. That's why he threw that in there at the end. Because, me and Dad are similar. Like, very much almost the same. And so we would clash a little bit because I had a point of view. I didn't really like when no one cared what I thought, but I had to get through that. Yeah, so we were really routine driven guys, and Dad's a routine. You'd think he's in the military, really. We got up we couldn't play video games till the weekend. Bed by 9.
Yeah,
Early,
early, yeah,
10,
early, yeah.
eventually during the week. Then up at 5:30.
Yeah, around that time, probably about 5:30.
Cereal, toast, bacon one day. What was the other day?
Pancakes, bacon,
and hash browns. Every other day. Talk to me about routine. Talk to me about process. And then talk to me about what it was like, brothers who are different, being taken through, practices, skill work, all this different stuff. And what was that dynamic for you? I can tell you how it was for me, but what was that like for you when I get introduced into the mix?
I think the dynamic, obviously, I think I was probably a little bit more focused on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was. Um, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I was dead set on that, and I really wasn't gonna deviate too much from that.
When did you feel that?
Mm, Probably, we won a couple, AAU championships, and um, then obviously we won, in Orlando at 10 and in Cocoa Beach at 11,
Mm-hmm.
and then Mike left. Mike
Right.
Conley left and moved to Indianapolis. So as your role continue to get bigger, even though the couple guys we had, Marcus, Monterio, Solomon, some of those guys, um, your roles continue to get bigger and expand. And, you're still playing at a really high level, on the national circuit. And, your confidence still continues to grow. So probably around that time, 12, 13, I was like, man, that's what you know, I'm doing well. I feel like I'm doing pretty well, continue to get better. So, you know, that's what I really, really was focused and locked in on it then at that time. So, um, the routine, uh, obviously you talking about the routine, where we ate, getting up, different things like that. I think the routine just prepared you, and it just kind of, um, the routine kind of, it's like an everyday deal. So you knew what you were gonna do. It just boom, boom, boom. And I think it allows you to lock in on a certain thing at this time. Then I know I'm going to this thing at this time. Boom. So I'm totally locked in on what I'm, at that specific time frame or whatever, whatever I'm doing. So I think it's probably that's a problem that a lot of our youth have, being able to focus in on one thing and before they moving on to the next thing, whereas they're doing so many different other things. So you're doing so many different other things, you don't get good at anything, because you're not locked in on that task. So I think that helped prepare me. I knew I was locked in on certain things, and I'm still to this day. If I got something, a list of different things, I'm gonna lock in on that. Then I'm gonna move on to the next one. I'm not gonna open up or start 3, 4 different tasks at once. And that comes from the routine of doing different things, and so that builds habits. Um, that builds habits to lock in on things, get things done at a timely manner, following directions, instructions on whatever you have to do. And I just feel like I'm not a guy that wastes time. So, in a routine, you don't have time to waste. Like, you got to be boom, boom, boom. So I think those habits allow me to lock in on things and continue to, whether it's schoolwork to hooping to whether I'm going spending time
Mm-hmm.
with family or friends, that allowed me to, allow me really good habits.
Yeah, because I remember like when we would be doing workouts and stuff, and you never really said much to me. You would be locked into workouts. It wasn't like you were ignoring me. But when I had to fight through things and there were parts I didn't want to do or I was over it or all that, I could always remember. I don't know that your frustration was necessarily with what I was saying or wanting. I think the frustration sometimes would come with like, dude, we got to get this done.
Hmm.
You're wasting time. Let's just go ahead and get it done so we can move on.
Hmm.
So I recognize that a lot in you. You were a very serious kid, but you also had fun when the seriousness was over. Like you you kept the main thing, the first things first. But you also knew how to have a level. At least that was my observation. Which was something I always was a little jealous of because I could be like, uh, you had an abnormal competitiveness, you had an abnormal focus, you had an abnormal clarity of what you wanted to do, but you had a normal relatability, a normal, seemingly, you correct me if I'm
No,
wrong,
okay.
you got along with people normally, like, and I was always self-conscious of my abnormality. I thought differently. I didn't mind telling people what I thought. I didn't like to be told without explanation. I don't like being like commanded. I like, still to this day. And the one of the things that I most wish I had was the ability to both. When I was younger, I think I got a little bit of that now, of being able to live in your specialness, but also be able to deal with people in kind of a normal way. What Fast forward a little bit. Um, what was time like as you're approaching junior high, and there's less of the AAU because you have the break that you normally don't have prior to junior high to yield to your junior high season, your high school season. So what was that transition into eighth grade basketball, and then talk to us about playing up as a ninth grader and how that was, that pressure or was it not?
It was a little different. It left me a light competition. So, like you say, when you move to middle school or junior high at that time, where I'm now middle school, you can't play AAU until after the school season. Before that, we played from August to July or September to August or whatever. So it's pretty much year round.
Y'all had the August.
We played usually nationals maybe the first week of August, and then you were off the
Just
rest of August to maybe the
mid September.
mid to late September. So
Shout out to 10-year-olds getting 3 weeks off.
yeah. So you missed it. I mean, you missed the competition level, and then you missed. We had become a family.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With that, not just the kids, even just the parents and stuff hanging out, and still to this day, I don't know how they scraped up all the different money and different things to get us to these different places, because this wasn't at the time where everything was covered, like some of these main AU groups and stuff is. But
Best you had was tax write-offs,
yeah,
and
so
75% of parents didn't know how to even do that.
so that's a whole nother story in itself there. But moved into middle school, so I still was able to get there, because as a seventh grade, I played up with the ninth grade, so I was always playing up, so it gave me that competition and drive and stuff to shoot for, because you playing against older guys. Obviously when that started, you kind of, it had a little buzz and stuff already, just, before, playing in Pee Wee and just different things we were doing on the AU circuit. And then stuff just continued to kind of grow around that area. So I didn't really look at it as being a lot of pressure, because it was something I wanted to do. It was something I put a lot of time in, so the pressure didn't get to you, practices and working on your game and different things like that. To me, putting that daily work and routine in, that eliminates pressure. And that the basketball part wasn't the pressure. I guess the pressure may have been having to be perfect. I'm talking like off the court and maybe not getting any kind of trouble, or you know, that stuff, so to speak. But the basketball part, I didn't. It wasn't pressure to me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, because even for me, I'd get more nervous. Like once the ball was thrown up, I was good. And the pressure for me was being young and being behind you. And it still wasn't on the court, but it was expectations and folks not understanding kind of the difference in styles and game and all that. Talk to me a little bit about that because you know it was pretty tough on me there for I guess it was around your sophomore year. So you had come off a ninth grade year. You fantastic. That was a year for those who don't know. That was I guess that was in 2003, 4. I believe the 5A Southeast that year had 3 of the 4 semifinalists in the 5A semifinals.
And 2 in the championship.
And 2 in the championship. So it was a incredibly competitive.
Best league in the state at that time.
Oh, yeah, without question. So he's a ninth grader playing in the toughest league in the state. And I think you were averaging 18, 19 points a game. And that was kind of when the pressure was at the most, at least on me, perception-wise. And I always say, like, it wasn't you that did that. But did you notice that? Did you notice any of that? Or did you just have faith like he'll figure it out or he'll be all right? Or were you just kind of, focused on the main thing? Like, hey, I gotta.
I think I was more focused at the time, but you could kind of see it a little bit kind of creeping up. And then I can remember you having that breakdown or whatever it was, so to speak, about it. And you just kind of see it festering, and it's probably hard at the moment, at that age, you're really not thinking about it. But me, like, I just wanted you to be what you wanted. You didn't have to be in my footsteps or whatever, man. You create your own path, because everybody's stuff, not gonna be the same. And to your credit, you were able to figure it out, and you've created your own path, and it's been a blessing to see.
Yeah, I was talking about it the other day. I remember specifically there was a game where whether it be junior high or high school, it kind of broke a record of threes in a game. And then you untimely, I don't know, scored 35, 40 points. And it was just like, in a game, it was just kind of like, oh, that was cool Monday night or Thursday, whenever it was. But it was yesterday's news pretty fast. And it was just like a wake up call of like, dang. But so you remember the kind of that night, and I would imagine that you probably didn't know what was going on. But that was a turning point for me. It was actually a turning point for, at least on my side, my relationship with you, because there was a level of maturity there to not overreact to my outburst that most 16-year-olds, 16, 17, they don't have. So I more than appreciate you taking it, knowing it really had nothing to do with you, but, kind of being there from that point forward. So take me to kind of that your senior year, my sophomore year playing. And then how did recruitment start, and how did that go? How was that process for you?
The senior year, that was a good year for us. We had a good team, and obviously, getting the opportunity to play with you and to play for daddy, that's pretty rare. That doesn't happen a lot. So that was a fun year, because we was able to, spend a lot of time, not just at home or whatever, but
And
in the
in
court.
competition, man, you get to learn. That's
Mm-hmm.
not to interrupt you, but that was something that I learned, didn't really know until that moment of like, even as family, and you're spending all kinds of time together over all the years. At this point, it's just the three of us, and how much more you learn when you're in the battle with somebody.
Yeah, you can you learn a lot about a person when you in you know battle competition. You're gonna learn some things about them that don't that you don't necessarily get from them every day.
Yep.
Just being around them. So the different things and situations you're doing in the game, multiple efforts, um, different IQ plays, or figuring out a way to attack a certain situation, or stop somebody, just different things like that. So that was a really really fun year.
It was. It was definitely fun for me, especially not just being on a team but contributing. And then it was just really fun. Also, in part because we were complementary
Hmm.
in our style. Way you were way better than me in multiple, and I was a little bit more multi-dimensional, but like from a scoring perspective, pretty one-dimensional. But could do, almost everything else. And then you could do everything and were just a high level scorer. So when you combine a shooter, high level scorer, penetrator, good defensively, high IQ. Rudy had a high IQ. It was really fun, and we played some good competition. Again, that conference was fantastic,
Hmm.
fantastic. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, because we had, the Jeremy Evans and stuff of the world in CrossFit, and then you had Mills was loaded. This was post Katrina, so they had not just their typical Little Rock guys, but had Paul Carter, who came up after Katrina. I think he played at Minnesota.
Yeah, he went to junior college, went to Connor State, and then was at West Plains my sophomore year at Three Rivers, and then ended up going to Minnesota.
Yep. And then, we go back to the Hawks. I mean, tell me about that team as y'all finished and where people ended up being.
We pretty much had the same group. We had a couple guys, we
Brock
kind
and
of, in and there, that we kind of added, or kind of, lost or whatever. So, that group, obviously, I ended up going to the Three Rivers Junior College, and then going to South Alabama, finishing up playing down there.
JUCO All American.
Yeah, Jugo All American, and then you had Brock, who was, I think, was also All American. We came out in the same class, went to Itawamba, and then
Bama.
went to Alabama. It's funny, we were all kind of getting recruited by the same. We were talking about different teams and stuff during that process and different things. And he ended up going to Alabama, and then you had Solomon, who signed with South Florida. Went down there a couple of years, and then transferred after the coaching change and went to Little Rock. Was Sun Belt Player of the Year, and had a really good career. Then you had Darren Hood from Bigelow, who ended up going to Tennessee Martin,
Mm-hmm.
and played over there his whole career. And then Marcus Pillow from Russellville, who went to UCA. had a really good career over there and finished up at Arkansas Tech, I think that last year. And then, man, you had guys like, Monterio ended up going to Holmes Junior College. And then you had Jonathan Ushindu, who played with us. That ended up going to Purdue. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
So we had a bunch of guys, man, that did their thing at the next level as well.
So this year, it's crazy. We were wearing colors. You had these colors in junior college as well. Tell me about Three Rivers playing for Coach Best, Hall of Famer Gene Best. He has earned the right to be referred to now. Naismith Hall of Famer Gene Best. How was it playing for him, and then eventually, what did you learn from coaching under?
Playing with him, playing for him. Played with him 2006 through 2008. Was able to go to back-to-back national tournaments. Elite Eight the first year, Final Four in the second year. Was able to play with some good players. We had a kid, Monis Griskanis, went to Wichita, big time athlete from Lithuania.
So good.
Really, really good. I had Archie Valov, who was All-American with me as well. About 6'9" big kid who ended up signing with Baylor. But then he never went to school. He ended up going and playing overseas. He was from Russia, was Serbia. And had other guys. Michael Lance went to Arkansas State. Jeff McClain that went to Murray State. You had guys like, Keith Burton, who was really good, ended up being a good D2 guy. Aaron Redeker, who had Iowa, and, he had several high majors, but was a big time student, engineering, went to Rolla, was one of the top engineering schools, in the country. So, it was a really good experience for me.
I really enjoyed it because Daddy was going to be gone on the weekends, and I was a junior and senior, and I had the house to myself. So I really appreciate that. I raised a little hell back in Monticello because of you, so appreciate that.
But nah, it was a good experience, man. It was, junior college. You got guys, you got a really tight knit group. Because you're always together, you're doing everything together.
Yeah.
Junior college was loaded at the time, so it was really, really good players in junior college. I mean, I think you were fortunate enough to go out to Hutch.
Yeah.
And, the level, at that time, people don't realize the level of competition and the level of players that were in junior college at that time that could play in the SEC and any of these Power 5 conferences. And, that was a really good experience. Learned a lot from Coach Best. He really detail-oriented, big on conditioning and he allowed you to play. Practices were really, really hard, really tough. But, he did a lot of coaching in practice, but so to speak in the game, you had did so much up to those games leading up to that point. He just kind of let you be you. And, he, not saying he didn't coach, but I mean, he was practice was his game, put it that way.
He was more pro style in that regard. The prep is in the NBA, for those that don't really know. Yeah, you make your in-game adjustments, and yeah, you need to have your sidelines out of bounds and your baseline out of bounds ready, and you need to know how, there are definitely tactical decisions for a coach in a game. No, don't get us wrong. But at a pro level, the preparation is ultimately where you kind of focus, and then you let your horses run a little bit when the game comes. And sounds like he was more similar to that.
Yeah, he was similar to that. So he was really demanding. Like I said, he's the all-time winningest coach in basketball. Period, with 1,300 wins. And that's over anybody at any level. And the amount of respect that he has from the peers, even guys, the guys that we talk about at that high level NBA guys, he's had USA basketball stints, coaching in world, university games overseas, coaching with Dean Smith. You can go down the line with a lot of different guys that he's been around and had their respect. So for him to finally get that that Naismith Hall of Fame nod, which for a junior college coach, that doesn't
Hard.
it doesn't happen. So but
You almost got to get to 1,000 wins to be in the.
he has 1,300.
So that kind of lets you know. Do you remember the last game he came before you committed? I think it was Mills. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I knew they came. I remember they came over to Mills.
Do you remember that game?
Yeah, I do.
Tell us about it.
It was a game, man. If you really don't know basketball, you're like, man, I just came down here and watched. It was just okay, I guess, because they ran a double. They doubled the whole game. Because the history with Mills, I had a 50-point game
The year before.
the year before against Mills.
So Bryan had a 50-point game my ninth grade
Yep.
year, where he scored 50 and scored the final 30. And y'all
Yeah, we won overtime.
beat. They were number one
In the state overall.
in the state overall at the time. Beat them when we were not as good as we were the following year. But yeah, so beat number one with a 50 ball at their place, scoring the final 30. It was almost like kind of LeBron against the Pistons, and so Tracy wasn't gonna let that happen again.
No, they're not. They wasn't gonna let that happen. It's funny. I was sitting at the state tournament a few years ago, and some guys from Mills over there, and they were talking about it. And it was like, man, we had to run for every point that you scored. So it was no way they were gonna let that happen again. So that was the game he was referring to. It was a game that they ran a double.
Yeah, basically like a junk kind of triangle and two almost.
With the two on me.
Yeah. So I don't know that we won that game. I
We did.
remember that game,
We did.
but they were loaded. But it was a competitive game. They ended up winning though. But Mills had a lot of memories for us because I had a flu game my senior year. I think I was third quarter, got the flu. They had a couple guys that were out. Questionable whether they were actually injured. But I remember, was it GB, the ref? What was his name?
Come here, ball.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Lazy. But I hit a three and in the corner, and there wasn't a lot of space between our bench and the floor. And I'm about to run down the other end, and I feel it coming. And I turn around immediately to go to the trash can, and GB's lazy. He's coming, about to knock him out, like hit him in the face almost. Threw up in the trash can and then got back on defense. So can't say I had a great game, but that was one of the games I'll never forget because I was sick as a dog and still did what I had to do, even though I wasn't as effective as I wanted to be. But yeah, Mills has got some memories for us. Um, so take me to South Alabama.
South Alabama, that's where I chose to go. One of the reasons it was in the Sun Belt. It was great area, great location. No football, so the focus was on basketball at the time, and it also gave Daddy an opportunity. We played a lot of the teams in the Southeast, so the way he liked to rip and run up on the highway and stuff, which I really didn't too much care for, with the hours and stuff he was getting in and stuff. So they were at least decent drives, put it that way. They were more decent than some of the other places I could have went to,
Yeah.
which would have just been crazy if you could try to do that. So
I didn't particularly like it either, but
yeah, so that was a reason. It was a good, great opportunity. Play for Coach Arrow, my man, Coach Taylor, Coach Chuck T was the guy that recruited me down there, and had a great time down there in Mobile.
good friends, good teammate, or teammates that are still good friends.
So it was really good. We lost in the conference title to conference championship to Western Kentucky my senior year, and I think we lost to Troy. I think in the semis my junior year. But it was great, being able to come up and knock off Arkansas up here and beat Florida, on the road.
How was beating Arkansas for you?
It was good. It was really good,
Because Bryan, what a lot of people don't understand is at that time, so Bryan named off all of the guys on the Arkansas Hawks that played at Division I level. Bryan, JUCO All American. Brock, JUCO All American. Solomon went to South Florida and was Conference Player of the Year at Euler, so on and so forth. And none of those guys were recruited by Arkansas at a time in which we kind of had wings, we had bigs, but we didn't really have consistent point guard play. And then you had four guys on the same AAU team who eventually played Division I and High Division I, and they didn't get a look. They did not just get a look coming out of high school. Very little looks even when you transferred. So that was a big one.
Yeah, it was a big one. It was fun being able to come back and play in Bud Walton. And to be honest, they hit I think Stephon Wills hits a shot late in the game my junior year, or we beat Arkansas in South Alabama. Because Pelfrey had just left South Alabama, so part of his contract was a home and home with South Alabama. So my junior year, Wells hits a three in the corner, I believe.
I remember going to that game.
And they beat us 1 or 2, I think. And then, so then we come back the following year.
You had a pretty good game.
Yeah, I think I had 14 or 15, and we beat
the guard Rodney.
Yep, I think we beat Arkansas double figures, I think. And
do you remember what you said after the game?
I think I talked about how empty the stadium was.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I had to jug them a little bit after that.
I think the question was around like, how did it feel playing back at home and playing in Bud Walton? And I think you had something to the effect of, it was great, but I've been in Bud Walton when there were more people in here than this, or something like that. And it was just like, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, I do remember that.
You're a competitor, but you're really sneaky about it. What a lot of people don't understand, no apex competitor, but can I mean you can talk your stuff, but man, it was body blows and domination, and just did it in a different way. Um, so talk to me about the end of your career and kind of that decision. Do you continue playing, or do you jump into coaching, and then we'll kind of finish out with the coaching side of it?
I had a good year. Like I said, we lost in the finals. I actually got hurt toward the end of the regular season, and actually was playing knee taped up and through the Sun Belt tournament and needed surgery. But it was my senior year, so I was like, man, I'm gonna figure it out, and we went through different ways that different rehabs and different ways we could brace it up and tape it up, and then I was able to play during the conference tournament, and then had to have surgery. So it was at that point I had a couple more classes that I needed to finish to graduate, and still had the opportunity to go play, but I knew I wanted to coach. So it was like, man, do I continue? Do I, go through this rehab process and then go overseas, knowing I got these few classes to finish? I'm not really. I'm gonna get the job done, but I wasn't a big class guy, so I knew if I would have got out of it, it may have been finding me hard to get back into it to finish. So I made that decision to stay, um, to finish my degree. My scholarship, they were able to, to pay. That was part of the signing there. They would pay for me to graduate regardless. So it was pretty much like I was still on scholarship. And so I finished those couple of classes. I practiced with them, did some student coaching. Was able to kind of learn how to break down film, different things, and all that kind of stuff. Was able to kind of kickstart, my college deal. So that was, coaching. So that all went into that process. So that was a decision, that I decided to
It's a
make.
tough one.
It was a tough one, but it was the right one. Um, it was the right decision for me and for my career.
Okay, so first coaching job.
First coaching job, got the if you can count that one as a coaching, just student coaching it. But after that, going to Murray State as a GA, for Coach Steve Prohm. He had just got hired. He was assistant over there, and Coach Kennedy, who was the previous head coach, had just left and went to Texas A&M. So he was able to get that job at Murray State. Isaac Chu, who's a guy that I would play some when I wasn't playing with the Hawks. I played a couple of tournaments and stuff with the Kansas City Keys.
Yep.
And they were pretty much, they had some guys that would play with us some. Damo and those guys would play with us some, when they weren't playing. So, just going to the Final Four, I bumped into him and told him what I was trying to do. And, he was at Murray State, but he had just left and went to Missouri. And it fell the right way where Prone got the job, who him and Chu were really close. And then, he calls like, man, I think Coach Prone gonna get this job. May have an end on doing that. And they still had a GA who was there named Nick Matson, he ended up taking a job at Fresno State. And so I got the call. I went and worked camp for about a week or two, and up there at the summer camp, and then was able to, I guess, pretty much show, what I could do and all that. And then he ended up hiring me, so.
So tell me about Murray. a couple of guys you work with, and just how the overall experience was.
Murray was great. It's a small town. If you take the college out of it, it's really really small, even smaller. But it has so much basketball tradition. Over the years, from coaches to Mark Godfrey, Mick Cronin, Scott Edgar, who was at Arkansas with Coach Richardson, Trevester Anderson, who's been a big time guy in the SEC level recruiting and different things. So it had a lot of tradition already, and they love basketball. And in small town, it kind of fit, with what I, had been around, and just going there and working with them, working with Coach Prom was a new staff. So the staff consisted of, you had William Small, who's been a big factor, big key to what I've done so far in my career. He kind of got me going with a lot of different things, meeting different people and all that kind of stuff. So he's been a big influence on me. Then James Kane, who was the younger guy at that time, he just came over from Alabama, and still a very good friend of mine. And he was very very helpful. I think we were very helpful with each other because he was really young and I was young, so I kind of related more to him, and so we spent a lot of time together and stuff, even off the court and different things, and then Coach McMahon was the third assistant, who ended up taking over for Coach Prom as a head coach, but is now the head coach at LSU, who's a really good guy, really good offensive guy. He was very very detailed, so I was able to learn a lot of different things from those three guys, on that staff, and Coach Prom as well. So it was a lot of learning, and kind of jump started everything.
And then, you were there around the Isaiah Cannon
So
time.
I was fortunate enough to be there his junior and senior year. The first year we ended up, man, I think got up to number 6 or 7 in the country. We finished 31-2. I think what kind of jump started that, we were able to take a foreign trip our first year to Toronto. So with a new staff, a lot of the players were back. We added some guys, but it was able for everybody to, it was an opportunity for everybody to get to know one another,
Right.
and so that jump started. So he was All-American both years. He had an unbelievable career. Got drafted by Houston, and then the next year I was there was Cameron Payne's first year as a freshman, and he burst on the scene. I think he averaged like 26-5 or something as a freshman. Was all league, first team all league, and obviously was a lottery pick
Yep.
the
I
next year.
remember. I think I had come over to see y'all play, and he was in the state championship or in the state tournament.
He was in the champ. Yeah, we watched it on
Championship.
TV.
Yep. And so yeah, he's gonna be pretty good. So, um, and then we talked about Three Rivers and the time there. You had went back to a coaching stint under Coach Bass, and then with Bryan. But kind of take me to UAPB and how that came about.
UAPB came along. Solomon Bozeman, a guy that I played AU, we talked about earlier. He was at Oral Roberts at the time as an assistant, and came up and got the job, and was talking during the process of it, and it was something we had kind of talked about over the years if one of us were fortunate enough to get a job. We would want each other to be on our staffs, depending on how it fell. And it happened to fall for him, which I'm definitely happy for and happy to work with him. So, that came about and, took a little while and they finally got it and able to go over there and work with him. And Cam Henderson is another guy that we were in the same class coming out, me, Solomon, him. He was coming out of Little Rock Hall. So it's a guy we've known forever too. So it was a blessing to be able to do that with some guys that grown up with. Cam was in junior college for a while when I was in. He played at Connors as well and coached at Connors. So we were in the JUCO space at that time, and obviously
Yeah.
talked a lot, and recruited the state of Arkansas. So it was good to be able to especially go, be able to get that job and be with people you know.
Yep. So, and how is it coaching with Solomon when y'all are both sons of coaches?
It's been great. I mean, it's
Like, do you understand more
um
because of that, or do you? I mean, it's hard to know since you don't know anything different. But
I think I think you automatically come in with an IQ because you've been around it for so long. Um, I think we're able to bounce different things out off of each other because we've been in different situations or different systems under different coaches. So it may be something that he had, when he was at Abilene Christian, excuse me, under Coach Golden, who's now at UTEP, and then him being, under Coach Mills at Oral Roberts, who is now at Wichita State. So the guy that's been under that Baylor tree, the Bryce Drew tree. So they have different, obviously different philosophies, and then where I come from, different philosophies. So it may be something, hey man, do you have something for this? Did y'all do this at this place, or do you have a different idea on that? So, we've known each other so
pretty.
for 30, almost 30 years or whatever, and so we're able to talk to each other certain ways. We're able to bounce different things. It may be some things I can say to him that maybe somebody else can't say, or he can say to me, but we got that connection and known each other. So it's been great.
Yeah. Any questions for me as my brother? Anything that you observed or interested in?
Um, probably would be how was it, growing up and playing, obviously, working out and playing with me and, playing for dad and then also what allowed you to branch off and move into the space that you in now.
Um, it was challenging, and I kind of touched on it earlier from the standpoint of there was a lot of expectations following you, but I couldn't draw on that because you didn't make it a big deal. So, you know, I was highly competitive. I think you controlled your competitiveness in a way that I couldn't yet. So I didn't know how to harness it and like take that energy and like take a deep breath and then channel it. And so in the midst of trying to compete with you or what people were saying about you, I couldn't turn to you. You then pissed me off. And then I used that to then go chase the things that I did. It was almost like anytime I would turn to get the motivation necessary to compete with you, it was a dead end. So I had to it forced me to have to learn how to create my own reservoir of whatever that is that allows you to persevere and push through some things. Um, it was really hard also to like you, things seem easy, not in the sense of the work that it took, but just the calmness when it came to put it all together. You know, I think you were just really focused on what you wanted to do, and I am primarily I just like I'm interested in new things, and so I didn't have a lot of focus. I had to develop that later on in college. Really, I just was if I paid attention long enough, or if I paid attention for a period of time, I could quickly pick stuff up. But then I'd move on to the next thing, and so it was a little difficult in that regard because you seem to have figured out what you wanted to do very early. Um, and then I think the hardest part was, you know, the I wasn't the center of the world. I wasn't the center of the family. Like you kind of were, and from some people that may sound like I'm criticizing. It's not. It just was the focus wasn't me by others, so I had to. And so from playing in those gyms when you know you were playing AAU, and I'd be in the bleachers and I'd have my action figures and I'd be fine over there in the corner or playing with Sydney and Jordan or whatever. And so it wasn't. I learned at a young age not to be dependent, and so when it came time to be judged by others, it wasn't an easy thing for me
Gotcha.
because I was so used to just kind of being the master of my own fate. But a lot of that went away uh, when we played together, which was extremely fun. I remember the time we all three of us got texts in the same game, which was fun. But I remember when we dropped you off in Poplar Bluff, and you know, you kind of had this look on your face. I think there was maybe a few people on campus because I think you were there a day or a week earlier than normal. And I remember hugging you before we left, and I was like, that was when I really felt like, you know, we were. I mean, I obviously always felt like we were brothers, but there was this thing that was missing that hug reminded me was never missing. And so that was a lot for me. I think growing up, though, because we were different, there was a part of me that wanted to hang out with you more. But we didn't. But I don't know that we should have. It was more of something that I wanted, but not necessarily like we didn't have similar interests in that regard. So that was it. And then most of it was just like, you know, there was a little pressure, but a lot of it was like, you know, the coolest guy in town is my brother. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't. I was never really jealous of you. I was just irate at other people. Sometimes even people close to us when you know. But that also honestly pointed back to high basketball IQs. Like I didn't get it. I didn't get that people see a 30-point game different than they see an 18-point game with 6 or 7 assists and 6 or 7 rebounds and steals at the top of the 1-3-1, and you're like, dang, he filled up the stat sheet. But most people cared about the PTS, man. That's all they cared about. But it also led to me understanding that, like, be around people who understand not just who you are, but what you do and what you contribute.
Yeah, that's a big thing there.
And so I learned that by your being ahead of me, I learned that super early. And so I think some of the success I've had has been around knowing the quality of people I want, the level of understanding I need, and then ultimately being confident in what you know you command and what you can do. Because I was always good. I wasn't as good, but it was just like, but bro, you're not entitled to be the best at something. Like most things, you're not gonna be the best at, and so the sooner you learn how to continue to be good, even when you're not the best,
Yep.
the better off you're gonna be. And that I learned that at my house, and so that's what I kind of look back on. Yeah. Anything else?
No. Well, I got one more. What would you tell somebody, a young person who maybe is looking to come out and forge a career or forge something that they're, but maybe a little hesitant, or maybe, let's say, maybe somebody, their parents or something, are pushing them
Yeah.
in another direction, which makes it, tough, as if they're hiding, or if they're kind of, um, if they're kind of slow playing, or kind of, I wouldn't say slow playing would be the word, but
Delaying
del-
a choice.
a choice
Yep.
that best benefits them.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I could sit up here and say find that thing within yourself and all of this stuff. The reality is
Easier said than done.
way easier said than done. And honestly, that that night, and but really, being willing to kind of say enough is enough. Like I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. Like almost like you gotta be willing, whether it's your brother or your dad, to say, I'm choosing a different route. And trust me that I won't neglect the things that I'm still involved in, basketball, but be ready that I got other things that I need to, that I want to do. What I'd say is, and I just had this conversation from a career perspective, if you think the next job or the job where kind of the final job you have, all you need to know is what you know today, then you're not thinking, you're not giving yourself enough credit. What I would say is, if you're waiting to have the skills necessary before you jump, you're never going to. And I think it comes with being comfortable with your ability to learn more than it is being comfortable with the talents you have today. A lot of people spend a lot of their time getting comfortable with the tools today and neglecting the comfort level they have with their ability to pick up new things tomorrow. And I think that's kind of the downside of what made it tougher for me, even though it's played out fine, was that it was pretty singularly focused, not in us not being well rounded. We it was academics, it was who you were as a man, what you believed in, church, basketball, all of that. So not saying we were only basketball, but from a focus and the amount of time perspective, we were pretty singularly focused by the nature. And so when you are that way, it becomes tough to be multiple. And how do you bring the same level of attention to detail, consistency, establishment of routine, all these different things we had in basketball that we grinded through the first few years, but ultimately by the time we're both 10, like basketball was within the ecosystem. It really wasn't questions about what it was. It was when we were going and what we were doing that day, and we knew what the priority was. So adapting and being multiple was the tough part, but I think again, learning how to be comfortable with learning is something we don't emphasize enough, and cultivating curiosity is something we don't emphasize enough either.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I had to have a strong enough foundation to allow me to take those steps back to take the leaps forward. But ultimately, my curiosity has served me in ways that I don't think is talked about enough. So, all right. I appreciate you sitting down with us. Probably have a part 2 with my dad. We're going to talk a little basketball specifically and just kind of how he raised us. But I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you walking through kind of the journey. There's so many stories in between that. But it was fun to sit down.
Hey, I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And you see we're wearing our UAPB gear. Mama's alma mater, and where Bryan is currently coaching and taking a little respite before y'all jump into the season. I hope y'all have a good season. Definitely going to catch a couple games I haven't been able to this past year. But excited about y'all's season coming up too.
Yeah, we very excited too. So we'll kick off January 6th at home against Alabama A&M.
Okay, sounds good. And then, what's the first game after your birthday?
That would be January the 20th.
Okay.
Yep, be January the 20th. I'm not sure who we play.
Okay.
But yeah, January 20th.
Well, y'all check them out. ESPN Plus has quite a few of the games, and I'll be watching, man.
All right, appreciate it.